Thanks for tuning in or listening to Picture Lock, where we focus on film. Every independent filmmaker has probably heard the question, are you going to move out to LA or New York if they don't already live there? And understandably so. LA and New York are the popular choices for insiders and outsiders, but one city you don't hear much on that list is Washington, D.C. and its surrounding area. Is it because the nation's capital is thought of as the center of politics? Is it because we as indie filmmakers in the DMV don't make enough noise? Is it possible to sustain life as a filmmaker in the DMV? The expert panel of guests behind me, along with our studio audience, hope to come to some conclusions on the subject matter. That's all ahead on Picture Lock. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to Picture Lock's Sustainable Filmmaking in the DMV panel. Allow me to introduce our distinguished guests. I'm starting off to my left. It's Mr. Anthony Greene. He is writer, director, or co-director, or producer of Thick. Anthony believes that the diversity and the people and locales in the DMV make it a great place for filmmaking. Next we have Miss Ann Wells, notably known for Paradise Boys. What she loves most about being a filmmaker in the DMV is the DMV Producers Association. It's dmvproducers.com. Teaming up with the other local producers has helped her so much with her own projects and made her feel like she's not alone as a filmmaker in this area. Next, we have Mr. Anthony Anderson, actor, writer, director, producer of Anacostia, the web series. Anthony loves to be able to tell stories of those that are seldom seen or heard in the mainstream market. The DMV has such a historic and overwhelming richness that it has not been fully discovered, and he would like to lead the charge in that discovery. Next, we have Mr. Christian O, the executive director of the DC Asian Pacific American Film Festival. He's also notably known for BC and Siblings, which were two of his 72-hour films that he shot here in the DMV. For him, he thinks that being a filmmaker in the DMV allows for so much diversity and resources. I think we're kind of hearing a theme here, right? And last but not least, we have Mr. Harold Jackson III, the writer, producer, director of Last Night. And he believes that the beauty and character of this city leans itself to intelligent and savvy storytelling. So our panelists, ladies and gentlemen, let's give them a round.
Very well written.
All right, guys. So as a panel, many of you are from this area, but you've definitely been making films in the area for a while. So first question is, do you all think that DC, Maryland, Virginia, the DMV, is a legitimate indie film market?
No, not yet. As far as being legitimate, it really comes down to us finding out a way to make it sustainable and making sure that money comes in, that filmmakers get paid, that actors get paid, that we have distribution, marketing, that we have critics associations that back us, that we have theaters that show our films. On a professional level, I think is very good as far as corporate work or commercials and stuff like that. But as far as independent film is concerned, we haven't broken that glass barrier of being able to make the movies here and be able to effectively sell the movies here and have a return of investment on our films here to make them further go out into the rest of the world. So places like Austin that can do that, or kind of like Colorado, a couple of other places that are really becoming indie film places where there's sustainable businesses there. We haven't been able to break that mold from inside yet.
I would have to say yes to what Anthony's pointing out, but there's also a categorization. For example, I think we are the documentary capital of the country. We are not necessarily known for our feature filmmaking. There's also issues of what I would say, the resources are there, and when you say legitimacy, legitimacy also means recognition. We haven't got the recognition. The other factor is that we are territorial in the fact that DC, Maryland, and Virginia, even though we are the DMV, they're still 3 separate states. And they too have not been able to figure out a way to collaborate amongst the 3 states to say, hey, let's provide this venue, this channel for filmmakers. And that's not there. We've been doing it independently on our own. So.
Yeah, I was going to say that we just started this group recently, DMV Producers Association, and one of the reasons we started that is because in this area, it sort of seemed like everybody was kind of doing their own thing, and we weren't really getting together, as a team. And I think there's a lot of hope, with us getting together with this group that's all from Maryland and DC and Virginia, to try to coordinate and really sort of have this umbrella group, which makes us a lot stronger than each of us are independently. So we're hoping that this will help us move toward, making a bigger splash.
Okay. Anybody else, or you guys both agree with?
I agree.
You know what? People aren't really ready to hear anybody say no about that yet. But the truth is, no, it's just not ready yet. It's not there yet.
Right. I mean, even those movie studios, they don't recognize us unless they need a particular scene at the White House or a particular shot, dealing with, maybe it's for example, even House of Cards, which is locally shot and produced. We don't see that type of recognition, and they don't realize, well, there's so many great, videographers, directors of, cinematography, editors, production houses here, because we have Discovery Channel here, we have National Geographic here, we have all the National Endowments for the Arts, Humanities here, yet they don't see that as being viable. There's also costs. We're probably much cheaper than both New York and LA, but are we giving the incentives? We talk about tax breaks and again, it's the government of DC, Maryland, and Virginia that need to start thinking about how can we attract those dollars, and they're not doing it.
Yeah, there's a lot of talent. You got this is a great theater area, Shakespeare Theater, Arena Stage. Like all these actors are here that are good actors,
Right.
that can get on stage and knock it out, which means they'll do good on film too. But it's just untapped because we can't make it, a sustainable commodity yet. So that's what we're fighting for right now.
Yeah, I think one of our biggest assets is also our biggest kind of issue, which is that this is when you want to do something like House of Cards or Veep, which unfortunately most of it is shot in Baltimore. Right. But when you want to do something political, then you get a phone call, as far as the world is concerned. But when you want to tell a story that's not political and you say DC, a lot of people don't really make the connection. So it's one of those things where there's the thing that I like about this city the most is that when you're in the city, you can walk a couple of blocks, or you can get in a cab $5. You'll be in a totally different area than where you were 5 minutes ago. So there's a lot of different stories, and there's a lot of different ways to tell those stories. It's just a matter of kind of getting over that hump of it's not all politics here. There's actually a lot more to the city than the White House.
I mean, I hold a lot of umbrage, and I get pissed off, really, when I see shows like NCIS, and they're not even shot in the DC area, And it's like, why? I mean, we've got great talent out here, both pre-production, post-production, everything. And if we need to create, actual sets, why not do it here in DC? Why do we need to create these sets out in LA? But again, I think what needs to happen is we need to market the DMV in such a way that says we're specialized, that this is what we're good at. And by doing so, we can attract those studios and movie houses to say, oh, yeah, we should be doing it in DC. Let's really drive authenticity and what I call real genuine looks behind our shows and our programs. So. Again, that's a heated issue for me.
No, that's all right. Let's get it cracking. So even though the issues that you all just listed, you guys are still filmmakers in this area. So can you talk a little bit about what life is like as a filmmaker? And are we even able to sustain ourselves as filmmakers just on our craft?
What?
Just on the craft.
Right. So we talking, most of us might have a 9 to 5 on the side, and
A 9 to 5 on the side.
I personally still have a 9 to 5 to just make sure that I'm able to eat because the money comes in, but it's still not enough to sustain yourself to where you can do it to where I can do it full time. But I think that personally for me, I think that it's what you. I think it's what you make it. I think it's what you make it and what you set out and what you set out to do. There are some people who set out to say, okay, well, I'm fine with just having a full-time job and doing my filming on the side as just something that I can maintain because they have no aspirations. They don't want to go further than the DMV area, and that's fine. And then you have those who think a bit larger, and they're out there pounding the pavement to try to bring in commerce here, and it just doesn't come in. But I think it also starts with the stigma that DC is not a place that has stories that need to be told, and that's not true. Like a lot of people feel like DC, if you want to tell a story in DC, it has to be something political because they think that everyone lives on Capitol Hill or everyone lives like around the White House. And if you go further past that, you find like a whole world of history in DC. Me growing up in Southeast DC, I was kind of ashamed the other day when I was driving with friends and we turned the corner and I was looking around like, what is this? What is this? And it was off of Branch Avenue. And I'm like, I've never seen these houses back here. I've never seen these like big houses and all this other type of stuff. So it's just like, it's the stuff that you don't see. And like, I think as DC filmmakers, I think that that's what our job is because we are out there on the streets and we're sometimes doing it without permits.
Right. Guerrilla style.
Yeah, without
Right.
permits.
But that's a problem with the DC Motion Pictures Office, because what they should be doing is if they want us filmmakers to thrive, they should allow it to they should make channels that make it easier for us to get those permits instead of us trying to circumvent the system. And I blame that specifically on DC government and the DC Office of Motion Pictures because they don't realize that if we want to make more films in DC, if we want to attract more filmmakers and actors and production studios or whatever to DC, there needs to be some concessions given, and they're not. But to answer your question in regards of being a filmmaker in the DC area, there's also I have friends who work in the production side of, let's say, Discovery, National Geographic. They make their money, right? But at the same time, they're also pursuing their craft. For many of us on this panel, we have to look at outside sources of income because even though the technology and the software, everything's gone down in price, right? It still requires time and money, which a lot of us don't have if we just focused on the filmmaking craft itself.
And there's a lot more people that's doing it too because of that.
And then you've got people who do go out to LA or who do go out to New York, right? But then they start at the rock bottom, build their way up. There's also connections. And I think the one thing that is lacking is even though we're connected in the independent filmmaking community, we don't have those connections to the bigger, influential powerhouses or producers or directors that we need to be making. Because once you have those connections, they go, oh, I love seeing your short. Maybe you should be AD on my next feature film. Or maybe I need you as assistant director of photography on my next feature. We need to build that experience. But again, those inroads are limited to us.
Why do you think that is, and how do you think we can actually get into those inroads?
Well, it's interesting you say that. There's always different ways to skin a cat, right? I've had friends, more recently I had a friend named, I don't want to name his name, but he had a short produced, a sci-fi short. And then he got a big contract with Warner Brothers based off the short. And so what I've always told people in the DMV area, and Anthony knows this speech, is that you need to make every film that you make out there needs to be a trailer-mercial. What is that? Meaning it's a trailer for something bigger, especially if you don't have the resources to make the full-length feature film. Make that short with the possibility of it being a much bigger film. with it being maybe a series or whatever, so that somebody goes, wow, that's a great concept, great story. I want to expand it. I mean, I met Jared Hess many years back, right before he got his break with Napoleon Dynamite. His film was actually a short that MTV saw that said, oh, we need to make this into a feature length. And again, I think that's one way to go. It's not the easiest way to go.
Right, but that is one way.
But that is one way. And then, and then self-producing, I'm going to let Anthony, I'm going to segue right into you, brother. Self-producing, what Anthony's done with Henchman's War. That's another route. So, Anthony.
Yeah, I just want to interject. People have to really pay attention to the business of filmmaking. So a lot of people who grab cameras and run out and shoot stuff and they edit it and they just throw it up, and that's it. And they're not paying attention to the business of filmmaking. They just want to be the best
artistic
filmmaker in their apartment complex. You know what I mean? And they're not really thinking about it.
Or their school, or their group. You know,
they're not thinking about it on the biggest scale. If you're going to make something, think about how much you're putting into it. Should I make this short? Do I want to go that particular route?
Right.
Do I want to make sure I budget the money for the festival route? Do I want to make a feature and just make a run for it? If I'm going to do that, what's my business plan? What's my return on investment? Do I get names? Do I not get names? Do I go Jungian? Do I not go Jungian? You know, where's this movie going to play when it's done? How am I going to get people to come out? Do I sell $30 for a ticket for a movie the same night something come out in IMAX 3D that everybody really want to go see? Or do I charge people the regular movie prices, put it in a movie theater, and they can come have that film experience? How am I going to get critics to look at it? So many people make movies and don't have anybody critiquing them. They don't have it be a debatable issue. They don't exist, except for your friends and your cousins.
And speaking of that, your Uncle Charlie, who comes and makes you laugh at the family reunion, he is not an actor.
There you go. Yeah, so, I mean, but those things have to be really
Nor is he an
thought
executive
about.
producer,
Exactly.
even if he gives you the money.
Everything's
But those things, a lot of things that I see, they're not being thought about, which means people are not going to take us seriously. If I make a whole movie and I can't get critics to look at the film and say whether it's great or it's not, I haven't done anything. It's nothing. I can just put it on the shelf and say, yeah, I did something. I can feel better about dying. You know what I mean?
Right.
But people have to really approach it like it's a film. You have to approach it like it's a business.
So it leads into my next question, which is, I believe that as an indie filmmaker in this area, you have to be an entrepreneur when it comes to your work. So that we don't just harp on some of the issues and the problems, you all are all successful. How have you successfully built buzz around your movies with the, like you said, the marketing, making sure that it's not just, okay, cut, that's a wrap, and then it just, is in your cousin's basement, like you said.
I mean, I think it's a new day. So, I mean, kind of the day is dead where you can, I think, where you can do a project every 2 years and people still know who you are. That kind of day. So you got to figure out a way to constantly be in people's face, right? So if it's not a short film, it's a commercial, like a lot of the stuff that Christian is doing. Just constantly getting in there, and then while you're in post on a production, you got to remind them of the last film you did. Then when a new film comes out, you gotta hit them with a new film, and then you just kind of gotta constantly keep rolling with the productions that you're doing. So, but on a second note, I think you just have to be good, right?
Well,
a lot of
that's
guys,
absolutely true.
And not to kind of to anybody's horn or my own horn. The reason we've been able to continue to make stuff is because we actually pay attention to the craft, right? So, I mean, Anthony Anderson's been doing the web series for 4 years. 4 years.
4.
Yeah, how do you even do that? How do you even write that? But
40 episodes.
Right, and he's got a following now on his web series, and that's because he pays attention to his genre. He knows how to work his genre. He knows how to sell his genre, and he does the work behind it. So, you just constantly got to get better. Nobody starts off at A+, but you got to continue to grow and get better as you put out more projects.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a learning process. It's also, you say success, but how do you define success? Is it money? Is it the number of YouTube hits you get? Is it is it the recognition you receive at a film festival or a competition like the 24-hour film race or the 48-hour film, or 72, whatever? You've got to look at ways on how you can provide, or not provide, but get recognition so that you can provide the tools to sell yourself. Because bottom line, we're all here selling ourselves for that next big project, whether it be, whether it's a role that might be a smaller role, like you're the AD, or a bigger role where they go, here, I have $100,000, make me a film, here's the script. I mean, again, we're all looking for those opportunities, right? But it's not about, we need to sell ourselves to get those type of opportunities. Plus, as both Harold and Anthony have attested, is that we need to make sure we are perfecting our craft. There's so much competition now, guys. I mean, for those of you in the audience, we're the YouTube generation. Sure, there's some great stuff out there, but there's a lot of crap out there too. And you're competing with that. So we need to figure out ways to differentiate ourselves, ways to, maybe YouTube's not the best way to get ourselves out there. Maybe it is, as Anthony said, self-production, film festival route, what I told you before, a trailer commercial, whatever it may be. Those are the ways that we're going to be able to combat those type of barriers that allow us to say, oh, I've done it for 4 years or I've done it for 10 years, I give up. I think none of us are at that point. We're all still hungry.
Christian better preach up here.
I'm sorry. Because I really feel that the people that I've worked with in the DMV, and it's not just Asian Americans that I deal with, I worked with the whole gamut. I feel that we really have a passion here that is untapped. I mean, whether it be the actors, whether it be the behind the camera, I mean, things need to evolve. And I think a show like Picture Lock and the things that Ann and Anthony have been doing, I mean, these are allowing us to evolve. At some point, we're going to hit a critical mass that says, you guys got to see us and hear us and look at us.
And that's what I'm hoping.
You can't stop.
Yeah.
It's like you can't stop. I mean, fortunately for me, we were able to hit a niche at a time where in soap operas were dying off. It's like every other week, one of the staple soap operas was saying, all right, well, we're canceling our shows, and soap fans were left with, oh God, what are we going to do now? And so when we dropped Anacostia, it was at the right time, the right moment. It was what you don't see on the norm, a African-American driven soap opera, which you haven't seen on television since Passions. Even though African Americans are the #1 audience for soap operas, there's not a soap operas that has a predominantly African American cast. And so when we came on, it really took off. And then, as they said, you have to perfect your craft. Personally, I can't look at my season 1 of my series. I like it. If I have to sit through it, but I will not sit through it if I don't have to. So it's like, as we went on, we saw the elevator, and then we brought in, we went out and brought in a soap star. And that completely opened us up to a completely new audience that started discovering the show. And it went from being that black show, that black soap opera, to a web soap. And it's been going on for 4 years, and I have to say, I'm proud that we're going into season 4 when a lot of shows that we came out with stopped after season 1. And it was because of money. And trust me, we don't have any money over here. It's like, I've never been shy to say, doing this show, I have gone hungry at work. I have had to get money from my mom in order to go to the grocery store to get food in the house. I have lost a car behind it. The one thing that remained constant is, I said, regardless of all this that's going on, I'm not stopping. I'm not stopping because I want this to go on, because I see the bigger picture, whether that goes into television or whether it stumbles over into something greater.
Here, yeah.
And that kind of
I know, right?
Amen.
What?
yeah, and that kind of drive is not, just unique to Anthony. There's a lot. There's talent here, right?
Right.
And I really do believe we're like one hit away.
Right.
Like that artist who just, if I can just get that one song, we could,
Right.
we can make. And I believe that because the talent's here. Anthony Greene, I saw both Henchman's War and Thick, and it's really good stuff. You know what I mean? So it's the talent's here. It's just some combination of us or one of us kind of cracking that barrier, and they laughed at Atlanta when they were trying to do it right. And now look at them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
The other issue that you had mentioned, why is it so difficult? I believe that there's issues with, there have been filmmakers out of University of Maryland, out of American, out of even Howard, that have gone on to Hollywood and New York, but how many of them actually give back or come back to DC saying, let's produce an incubator, right? We don't have an incubator program. Maryland had a great film program back in the 70s and 80s, and then they got rid of it, and then now they're realizing, oh, that was a missed opportunity. We should have continued the film program. We have alumni who are in the industry out in LA that we need to call back and figure out how can we incubate future filmmakers. And that's an issue. I think that's another issue that's plaguing the DMV area. We don't have, for example, USC. How many filmmakers have come out of USC that give back to USC? We don't have that here. And I wish we did. I wish we had an award-winning filmmaker in LA saying, oh, I need to give back to my alma mater at University of Maryland or American or where, and they don't. And that's a little sad to me as well. So that's another barrier.
And kind of piggybacking on that, the flip side to that is that what a lot of people don't see is with kind of the saturation with technology coming down, price coming down. Just because I see your film, doesn't actually mean you're making a lot of money, right? So, we kind of kick ourselves a little bit for not being able to do certain things the way we want to, but in all honesty, that's a lot of the film community. That's where it is. The film game is kind of set up the way the country is, right? You got your 1% who are making Iron Man and all them. Those guys are living high off the hog, and then you got this kind of small upper middle class, and then you have this kind of almost barely holding on to middle class, and then you have the rest of the world. And a lot of the stuff you see is coming from the rest of the world.
But also, I think it's really easy to sort of say, all right, well we're here, and this is why this is not happening. But to me, what I've seen is we also have to fault our own community as well, because I've seen several independent films that were actually pretty good. That if the filmmaker was not, in my opinion, possessed on putting some money in their pocket, that it could have went, as Harold said, it could have went to that one hit and actually broke free. But what you see oftentimes is you'll get this filmmaker, they'll put a film together, they'll have a screening here in DC on Monday, and a week later it's on a DVD, and then a week later you're seeing a posting, my film is going to be in Walmart. Well, okay, that's fine and good, but you didn't even, you only gave it 3 weeks of life.
There was no maturation of it.
It's you didn't even put it out to festivals so someone could probably see this and then get recognition. And once they see it, they come back and say, "Well, wait a minute. If this person is here doing this, I wonder who else is here." And then they hear about Harold, or they hear about Christian, or they hear about one of us, and they say, "Oh, okay, look at all this is going on." But you can't do that if you make a film in January. At the end of January, you're screening it, and on February the 2nd is in Walmart, and you are in Walmart and you're holding it like this, and you're like, "Look, I just bought 6 copies of my own film." Well, that just doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
Again, that goes back to incubation. And I think with filmmakers, and I know some of my friends who have these champagne wishes, caviar dreams right off the bat. And you have to be more realistic. I mean, you have to realize that you're not going to hit the lottery like that. you've got to progress. And I think you're absolutely right, Anthony. You need to have this, what I call, growth period of your film. You know, I have one filmmaker friend, her name is Christine Yu, created a film called Wedding Palace, very international and cultural film, and she's been playing it and milking it for a 2 to 3 year process, and she's doing it the right way, where she's going to festivals, getting contracts with
Theatrical
Netflix,
releases. Yeah.
getting contracts with distributors. I mean, that's how off of that success, because at the end of the day, and this is something that I think a lot of filmmakers don't realize, and it goes back to what Anthony says, is there's a business behind this. And if you don't understand the business, do not expect to make your next film in a much bigger fashion, because you're going to be limited. You're going to be almost typecast to say, oh, you're the indie guy, right? Oh, I saw what you did last time. We're not really interested. You have to realize that there's got to be a process that you need to follow within the entrepreneurship of making films. And if you don't understand that, then find someone on your team who does. Because if you don't do that, if you're only focused on, okay, I'm done with my film number 1, I'm on to my film number 2, but you haven't even really saturated yourself with your film to the rest of the world, you're never going to go anywhere.
That's a lot of things that a lot of younger filmmakers don't understand. That's something I didn't understand. when
Even
I
me,
first
I
started.
learned it the hard way as well.
And it's that once you say I'm going to make a film, you've committed 2 years of your life, at a minimum.
At a minimum, I'm about to say.
So, I mean, from the writing to the production to the to now you got to you got to drag people in to come see it. I mean, you've automatically committed 2 years of your life every time you say I'm going to do this film. So Christian is right. Where if you're going to do that, then why take the first out that comes your way? Why not see what you can get? Why not? And this is something also that a lot of young filmmakers don't understand. That again, I didn't understand when I first started, which is you got to know what you're going to do. And Anthony touched on it at the beginning of the show. You got to know what you're going to do before you even start making your film. Not after you got it in hand. Now it's like, what am I going to do with this thing? Of course, because you haven't planned, the first thing that anyone offers you sounds great, you know, because you have no plan for the film.
Right.
So, I mean, just it is necessary to understand that if you're going to be a producer, you have to be a business person. That's what it is. I mean, you leave
Or team
you
up
know,
with business people.
you just have to know that you have to put the right people together in your team. You have to know what you're going to do before you start.
So one thing that you guys seem to kind of be bringing up is just the patience, right? And another thing, I know Anthony has talked about this before, is that there's so many filmmakers out there, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're all good, right? But how can that filmmaker that might have the passion, have the dream, but doesn't know about the business side of it, how can they actually get that maturation?
The easiest way, and this is the way I learned, is through festivals. Because when you go to film festivals, and I'm not talking about just your small independent film festivals. I had an internship at Cannes. I had an internship at Venice Film Festival. I did. I was out at UCLA for their intensive filmmaking seminar out there, where I actually worked on a Universal production set. Got to meet the distributors. Got to meet. I mean, you need to understand the mechanics behind this. Because if you don't, you're only looking at the craft of the film itself. And you'll be stuck only with the craft of the film itself, meaning, oh, project 1, project 2, and so forth. You really have to have an idea and understanding, oh, I need to get as many accolades as possible on my short film. You know, even now, I mean, I made a film with Anthony, you know, it's almost been 3 years ago now, right?
More than that, actually.
Yeah, and I'm still submitting that film to festivals so that I can see if I can get any other accolades out of it. Because somebody's going to see it. Remember, film is all subjective, right?
Is it?
Someone's going to see it and say, wow, I really liked what he did here, or he did there, or what the filmmaker did there, I mean, the DP did there, or the actor. I mean, you never know what's going to connect with someone. So you need to make sure that you're always selling. I mean, unfortunately, life is retail, guys. You know, you're selling yourself to get your next job. So then with each film you make, even though you may treat it as a child, you have to let it grow.
Right.
And at some point, it's able to walk on its own legs, and it may run. You never know. Really.
Right.
I mean, again, like I said, the one friend that just got a Warner Brothers picture deal off of a short, I mean, he submitted to the other festivals and stuff, but it's because someone saw it and said, wow, the special effects were incredible, the sci-fi element was incredible, let's make it into a full-length feature film. I mean, this is what I'm talking about, because we don't understand those mechanics. So the best thing, submit your film to film festivals, go to film festivals, especially if you're a budding filmmaker,
And go to
talk
the
to other
film market.
filmmakers.
At the
And
festivals.
these other events that both Anthony and Ann are putting on, you need to be talking to other filmmakers. Because the best experience are the experience of others. So you need to find that out.
Another, well, you go ahead, because you've been quiet for a while.
Yeah, sorry, I've been the loud
Yeah,
mouth.
you've been quiet for a while. Go ahead, Ann.
I can't remember what I was going to say. The
Film market.
But yeah, well, I was mentioning the film market is great. You know, seeing the booths and seeing what people do and stuff and how they're selling their movies. I think a lot of the things that we've touched on are things that we need to be doing as filmmakers. You know, to increase our visibility and stuff in the area and just increase the name of the area. But I did want to mention on a positive note, I mean, it's difficult to make a movie. It's always it's just very hard to make a movie. It's really rewarding and just amazing and great and everything, but it's very difficult to make a movie. But I made my first movie in LA and all the rest of them out here. And even though there are these pitfalls and difficulties in making a movie out here, it's a billion times easier than making a movie in LA. I mean, just a billion times easier. And so, I really want potential filmmakers, in the country to know that, that going to LA is great. I love LA. But I mean, I really love LA. But making movies, for being an independent filmmaker, it's a million times easier to do it here. I don't get an instant no when I say I want to shut down a street. Or things that in LA they go, yeah, sure, for $100,000. I mean, just ridiculous numbers that you can't even, even just going in and shooting in a bar, late at night. They'll give you a deal, that's just outrageously expensive, and then if you run 5 minutes over that, you're paying for an extra hour or whatever. Whereas here, almost every location I've ever spoken to has just been like, great, you want to make a movie here? That sounds great. When? Come on down, So I mean, there are definitely pros and cons. I mean, I think the big con that we're all fighting right now is just that we don't really have a name for ourselves in this area, and we're all just kind of doing these little fits and starts on our own, and the idea is to get us all together as a team and really sell ourselves and really make it happen the right way, like you guys are talking about, and not just being amateurs about it, but.
So, maybe a couple more questions before we open it up to the audience. But I once heard that to increase your rate of success, fail twice as much, experiment. So what would you all say has been one of your biggest fails that has actually helped you all to succeed and learn?
My first film was a big F. And I'm okay with it because I learned a lot from doing it. I was actually living in Pennsylvania at the time, and I found the best actors I could find. I was busing actors in from New York, $30 a ride, and when a lot of people don't know, I actually did not have a crew on that film. It was just me and the actors. I had a camera. I was working in television news at the time, and I borrowed the camera from there. I just did everything wrong. And I wrote the film, I made it, and when I was done with it, I did exactly what you should not do, which is, all right, great, I got this film. Now what am I doing with it? I don't know where to go. I don't know who to talk to. I literally had no clue, and I kind of stumbled through the distribution process. I mean, I lucked up and got Netflix out of it, and I say lucked up because it was literally just luck. I just ran into it, But I had no plan, no clue, no direction, and it didn't do very well. I lost money on it, and it didn't go very far. So I learned then that the best thing you can do is to treat every film like a small business, right? So we just, I don't know if anybody noticed, I think Dr. Dre just sold his headphones for like $3 billion, right? But that's the way business works nowadays, right? You come up with an idea, you cultivate it, you put it out there, you get people to like it. The more people like it, the more people notice it, and then when someone says, I want to be a part of that, and then they take it off your hands for a large sum of money, theoretically, in a perfect world. So if you think of it that way, then I think it'll increase your chances of success. But the only way you're going to get there is by knowing where you want to go before you start.
I think each experience, and as an independent filmmaker, you're not just one thing. So you might learn on the short film that you need to be more controlling of how your vision is, put on screen. Because you're working with a lot of people. First day, you just can't believe everybody showed up. And you're overwhelmed by it, and you want to try to make this good, but you got people with ideas, and you don't want to be a dick. So you're like, okay, we can try that, But then you realize, after it didn't come out the way you wanted to, and you can see what you could have done better, how to control the set more. Then you get something where money comes in, but you got to get the business acumen together. You got to make sure everybody's taken care of. You got to make sure the next time you come back out, the issues you had the first time with the money doesn't happen the second time around. Then you get into pushing your movie, distributing your movie, getting movies in people's hands, getting it in different places. How do you promote and market it? You don't send it somewhere and just have one person do a write-up. That one subjective write-up could kill it. So you got to realize how to do your promotion and marketing in a better way the next time around. How soon do you get somebody on board? So everything was a learning experience. And then at the same time, we're filmmakers at a time when the business is changing. This isn't 10 years ago at all. Like now, Netflix is completely different than it was when Harold first got his film on Netflix. Now as an independent filmmaker, they're making their own shows now. Netflix doesn't need us anymore,
Right.
So when you got filmmakers who have the goal of getting on Netflix now, it really doesn't make as much sense as going brick and mortar and selling those copies flat out right. But then why would you go sell in the store if you don't have a fan base?
Right.
Which means it's just the movie everybody walks by to go pick up the one they know. So how do you guerrilla market? Do you do it piecemeal? Do you go from state to state? See, all those things you learn by consistently being a part of it. You have to ingest it as an independent filmmaker. If you're just a director, you just wait for somebody to say, come direct this. If you're just a producer, you wait till somebody say, come produce this. But as an independent filmmaker, you have to do everything. You have to be on top of all of it. You got to know where the actors are. You got to know who the good music supervision dude is, or who's the great sound people. The cameras change every 6 months. I just got the new camera. It ain't new no more. This camera new. Does that camera have a good interface? Can you edit on that camera easily? People who got the Red when the Red first came out, tried to edit? No. Your movie's not going to happen anytime soon because the technology has to keep catching up with itself. So those are the things from an independent filmmaker's perspective you got to learn. I don't care about cameras. I don't want to touch your camera. I want to meet a DP who know about the camera and an editor that knows about editing and put them together. But I had to learn that. When I'm sitting in the house with all these stuff I bought, and then I'm looking at TV, oh, that's the new thing. How much is, So you start learning, okay, well, that's not, I need to come over here and hire them two to do that. This is, and then, so you gotta, it's all piecemeal. You gotta really learn what your place is, what you really want to do, and how to really work with other people to not make the mistakes you made the last time. Because there are a lot of people who just take that one camera they got from Circuit City 20 years ago. We gonna make a movie this weekend.
Right.
And they go and they throw it together. The music too loud, the dialogue too low. Somebody got a purple shirt on 1 minute, it's red the next. They don't care, they just throw it out there because it's easy to get it out there now. But to really set yourself apart, you really have to pay attention to the business. You gotta pay attention to those minimal things. You don't really know if anybody's gonna like it or not because like Christian said, it is subjective. It is subjective. But that's what you bank on as a filmmaker who wants to make something happen. You want somebody to debate over whether your movie is good or not to arouse the curiosity of another person to go see it.
Right.
And that's it. You just gotta keep paying attention to those incremental things because there's always something to learn on each set.
You know, you were asking about failures and success, and I think what really proves to be the defining factor of whether what you've created is a failure or a success is time. Because over time, you will see whether that film will evolve or grow legs, or you'll see that it'll just die right where it is, right? But I want to piggyback off of what Anthony says. It really is about surrounding yourself with good people that can deal with the mechanics of the film. The business side, if you are going to be an independent filmmaker, you do need to understand that. Or, again, you surround yourself with someone who has the appropriate skills to be your business person. But ultimately, I think what, you know, with me, with my growing experiences, I realized when I first made my first, it was a documentary film because I went to GW, got my documentary filmmaking graduate certificate at the documentary center there, and realized, oh, I really want to do documentaries. But the film that we had created, we didn't realize about music licensing. I used a Frank Sinatra song, I used a Green Day song. I mean, and I was like, where is it ever going to go? No one's going to pay the licensing. I didn't realize that.
Right.
And so I think what really is evident, especially if you're a budding filmmaker, is education. Meaning educate yourself. And I'm not saying go to film school. There are great resources like this place itself, Arlington Independent Media. You can learn everything you could learn in film school right here, or other public access channels. Or, you know, we do workshops within the DMV area. You know, I'm on the board of DC Shorts. We have a mentors program. We do other things. So all I'm saying is educate yourself. That way your successes are more than your failures. Yeah. Because at some point in time, you're going to build up your skill set to a level that is, what I would say, comparative to others that will want to work with you. That say, oh, wow, Anthony's a fantastic director, fantastic producer, or Ann is I want to work with them. You know, and I want to put my skills out there. And you need to make sure that your skills are at least comparable to that. Because if you're just a first time, oh, I'm just going to grab a camera, shoot it, this,
right,
your chance of success is really low.
Right, and if you're a second time doing that, your chances of success are really low.
Exactly. So again, I'm just saying, make sure you are educating yourself. You know, you need to know the mechanics, at least the basics. If you're not a DP type of person, and you'll know it right away. I don't want to touch lenses. I don't want to touch, you know, I want my DP to deal with all that.
Right.
Or, you know, whatever role you're willing to take, you need to figure out at least the basics. If you're going to do it all by yourself, that's a huge weight. You've been there, we've all been there. But if you decide to do this with others, a collaborative effort, you know, things get a little easier. You know?
Okay.
And just, this is a personal pet peeve of mine.
Last one, and then we're going to kick it to the audience.
Know where you're at in your film career. Know what you can do. Know how much money you have. You know, I saw a guy.
Be realistic.
Yeah, I saw a guy with no money and a little bit of name try to do an action film, and he had this scene where the car flips over 50 times, and it was a CG car, and it looked like a cartoon, and it was just so bad, and the sound was bad. It was everything was bad, and it was you can't even laugh. It's so bad.
Yeah.
You know, so just understand where you're at. Focus on the good things about storytelling, those sorts of things first. The big budget stuff will come.
Right.
All right. Let's throw it out to the audience if anybody has a question.
Scared to talk to us. Look at
All right. Hello?
It's on. It's on.
okay to talk to us.
So you all had mentioned earlier about we've heard the problems and the solution, it seems, for instance, in Austin, is that they created the South by Southwest Film Festival. So I know this weekend I went to the Maryland Film Festival. I know I heard that the DC Film Festival is hit a wall potentially, but are they really embracing the local filmmakers? Because when I went to the Maryland Film Festival, I didn't see a lot of films that were produced and directed by filmmakers from the DMV.
That's right.
So
That's very good.
what are you all going to do about that?
Actually,
But two of our festivals,
yeah,
both Anthony's festival and my festival, the DC Shorts Film Festival, we really promote local independent films. And so does Anthony with Real Independent. So,
Not only that, Rosebud as well.
Rosebud
here.
does
I mean,
follow.
I've heard of DC Short, but is it, and it's been around for some time. I know it's John Gann, right?
Right, that's correct.
But what are you doing to ensure that it will get to that status of a Southwest by Southwest, which seems like that seems to be the void here.
This is the thing. Now, Maryland, I will say that Maryland, they did release Chris Martinez's Call of Cthulhu film.
Right.
They've done it. Maryland does it more. Maryland Film Festival does it more than anybody else. And I would say this for DC Shorts. A lot of filmmakers from here aren't making the short films that can compete with the rest of the world because they're not watching the films
Well, that was
from the
my
rest of the
point.
world. They're not educating themselves enough. If you're not watching movies and you want to go make movies,
Yeah.
you know.
That is the
Thing, but as far
so-
as the people that are, like yourself.
Right. So,
So
what
what
we're
mechanism?
doing though, what we're doing right now, what I'm doing with Rife and what we're doing with DMV Producers Alliance, we're putting together Indie Capital Awards, which is the Oscars for independent films made in the DMV. This puts the movies on a pedestal. We're going to get publicity behind it. This is going to get news coverage. These people are going to get a chance to compete with the films that they made. Who did the best editing, the best special effects, the best music composition? Because there's a lot of times the festivals will say, okay, this is the audience favorite movie, or this is the best short film. But all those intricate small things that go into filmmaking, locally, we don't really get it recognition for right now. So that's the first thing. We need to build a community. We need to award that community. Let people know who's doing it the best in the community. Washington area film critics are behind judging the films. So when we do that, then the other filmmakers see these things and people start to step it up a little bit more. It's a lot about confidence. A lot of local filmmakers don't have their work critiqued. They don't want to hear if their work is good or bad. They don't put their work out there. They'll screen it themselves and keep it back. So DC Film Fest, they show a lot more foreign films than anything else. A lot more foreign films. They were a great foreign film festival. They were not a DC-centric film festival. We didn't have a DC-centric film festival for the most part. But is that because of the people, the festival organizers, or because the actual filmmakers weren't really stepping up and being a part of that? A lot of the filmmakers make this stuff and want to ship it out. They might want to show it locally, but that's that one time they want to show it locally to family and friends, and then they want to take it elsewhere. So the filmmaking community has to really buckle down and support itself first. And that's why you have the festivals like mine that I work with Skyrocket and Christians, because we're trying to get that community going. We're trying to make that community build up where you can come out and actually see the local filmmakers.
However, real quick, Christian, I personally have an issue with, and I think Anthony and I was having this conversation on Facebook and inbox the other day. Personally, I have a gripe with a lot of the festivals in the DC area because for some reason they will not, or they do not recognize a category for web series, and so we have to, and so we're regulated to the DC Web Festival, which is like. It was just the first time, I think,
Right, at Anaconda.
I think it was like the first time, and those web series that were there out of the DMV area were excellent.
Broken content.
And the crazy thing is like we talk about community, we're part of the filmmaking community too. And I was telling Anthony, I was like, well, you know, we need to have a slot that's there for us too.
I agree.
And it's like, let us in to play as well. And that's my issue with some of these festivals here.
Well, here's the thing. Within the Washington, D.C. area, I have tracked, there are over 65 film festivals in the Washington, D.C. area. And the issue, and this goes straight to what Anthony's saying, is that we used to have a thing called the D.C. Independent Film Festival, which totally died. And it's because we didn't get the support. And this is also the issue even with DC Shorts. I've asked John Gann and I've asked other members of the board. We need to include music videos. We need to include commercials. We need to include the things that people actually do here within the DC area that I talked about. National Geographic. Or you're working for the National Endowment for the Arts. these are categories that are not there. We're just looking at short films from across the country, across the world. Those are the only categories that we currently take in terms of submissions. So things need to change. I think Anthony's in the right direction, especially with his festival. There's other festivals like Richmond Film Festival, some other local film festivals that do allow that judging of local filmmakers as well as expanded categories. We need to do more though. Ultimately, we are that community, then we need to affect that change, and it's just not happening. We need more support. So, you know, if you're on that particular bandwagon, by all means, let's make more noise about it, you know, so.
Yeah, because I mean, we can build it, but we gotta get people in the seats,
Right.
you know?
And one of the reasons that you were talking about filmmakers, a lot of the filmmakers may not be ready, and it's partially because they're not really educated in
They're not
in
watching.
film, they're not watching films. And secondly, it's kind of because, unfortunately, filmmakers in the area compete against themselves, right? So my film needs to be better than his film, as opposed to my film needs to be comparable to what's out there in the world. So that's one of the things that, you know, as a relative newcomer to this area that I've noticed that maybe, you know, could be fixed.
No, and the great thing is about these festivals is that sometimes when you do go out and you're included, you actually get to meet other filmmakers. Like I went to a film festival and I saw Harold's film. And from Harold's film, just meeting him that first time, I was like, wow, like I would want to work with him one day. And I think Harold was shocked when I called him out the blue and was like, Harold, I have something to put in front of you. I want you to direct our season 4 trailer coming. And he said, tell me about it. I told him about it. He was like, yeah, I'll do it. And he did it. And the response to it was like overwhelming. We had other web series creators from LA sending messages like that has got to be the best trailer we have seen of any web series since we've started. And I mean, and it's because if I hadn't gone to that film festival and saw Harold's film and enjoyed his film and approached him, it would have never happened. So you have to be in the room with other people so you can get those cards and you can see what other people do.
I mean, last plug here, but you guys also have to realize that you need to put your works out there. So for those of you who are not familiar, but like Without a Box, Film Freeway, there are sources that you can submit your films. You'll know what festivals are categorically inclusive. You know, like, for example, you said there was a webisode type of film festival here. You need to find those. If you're a music video director, then you need to look for all the music video festivals that you can submit your film in. If you're a feature length, or if you're a short, or if you're a documentary, you need to find all the various type of film festivals that you can actually submit your film to. Get those accolades. Remember I told you, get the awards, get those recognitions. That puts you up and separates you from everyone else that's out there. If you're not doing that, you need to. Yeah.
Let's see, is there anybody else that had a question?
Thank you very much for everything that you've said, and I've learned a lot today. There are a lot of pitfalls that you all have talked about, but yet you all are still in the game. So what's your favorite part about filmmaking? What keeps you still making films? And first.
Ladies first.
I mean, filmmaking is a collaborative art, you know, and that is, I think, probably the most exciting thing besides the fact that you're getting to tell a story that you're interested in telling and that you want people to hear, you know, but the fact that it's sort of an impossible task, I mean, really, to make a movie. And the fact that you can go from development through pre-production and production and post-production with all the different people that come on board, and you get all these different voices and all these different, I mean, you really have to have people who know sound, people who know lights, people who know, I mean, you know, you have to have people who really know what they're doing in all these different categories, and you bring them all together and you become this family, really, creating this product, and it's addictive. I mean, it's really addictive. Like, you can't quit. You know, if you really love filmmaking, you can't quit filmmaking. It's just too much. It's way too much fun. It's as difficult as it is.
I was on a bus going to work the other day, and it was like 7:30 in the morning, and I'm just sitting there minding my business because sometimes you forget. I mean, sometimes you forget you're on the way to work, and this lady, she gets on the bus, and it's in Bethesda of all places, and she says, "You're on Anacostia. Where the hell is season 4?" And everyone on the bus is looking like, and I'm like, it's coming, it's coming. And she proceeds to sit there and talk about her favorite characters, her favorite episode, her favorite lines. And then it's then that you realize that, well, wow, people other than my family and friends have been touched by this show, and it makes you. And it sort of gives you energy. So when you're dreading to like go into the process of pre-production and sitting down with everyone and getting everyone together, it sort of gives you that energy to say, okay, let's do this, because there's still an audience out there for it, and they're ready to see it. And that's what makes me proud every season when I say that's it. But it energizes me when
You can't quit.
And trust me, I've said it 3 times, like that's it, I'm not doing it anymore. But then you run into these people that are so touched, and some of the stories have touched them, and they connect to it so well that you just say, as long as there's a market for it, I'm going to do it. And I get to episode 8 of 10, and I walk away from it with tears in my eyes, like, okay, we got 2 more episodes and the season's over, and I won't see these people for a while. So that's what makes me proud.
Because I saw Harold's trailer for season 4, so I am waiting.
Yeah, it is excellent.
I'm a fan.
No, I mean, I think for me, again, I say that filmmaking, of course, is subjective, right? So, there are times where you get the worst, criticisms, and you also get the best criticisms of your work. And I don't let the worst criticisms, deflate me. That just makes me want to do better. And I think that's why I keep doing what I'm doing, whether it be a music video, whether it be a public service announcement, whether it be a short film. It's that drive. It's because I want people to either hate it or love it, right? And then I know if they hate it, okay, I've sort of incurred some sort of reaction. And if they love it, then again, I've incurred some sort of reaction. It's the ones when you get no comments at all that makes me really worried. Because did I just put junk out there that nobody is they're being apathetic towards? So it really is about that feedback. I love the feedback, both good and bad, that fuels me to continue making it. So,
yeah, I think I'm still kind of a nerd and a kid when it comes to movies. So I still like to go to movies and experience them in the theater. I think for me, the first time I heard a large audience like collectively laugh or gasp at something that was on screen that I did was like, wow. I mean, and that's, like my favorite filmmakers understand that movies are about an experience, right? You walk through the door, and if you did it right, hopefully they live in your world for that hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever the case may be. And then they come out of it on the other end, and they've been lost in this kind of place that you created. So, I want to give people something to experience, and that kind of drives me. Even when I'm shooting, down to when I'm writing a scene, to when I'm shooting a scene, I'm constantly thinking, can I capsulize people in that moment? So I said all that to say the best part about filmmaking for me is to actually sit in the back or the front and just listen to people watch my films and see if you are connecting with people. And when you do, it's like the greatest feeling in the world when you do.
I think you're right. All right.
Okay. It's 2-pronged for me. The first thing is film is therapy for me. It's my coping mechanism. It's my escape. It's my first love. It's the undercurrent of my life. That's what film is to me. When I physically get into creating something, it makes me immortal. I'm not thinking about what it's going to do for anybody now, but it might be another young boy like me whose family came from Southeast Woodland 60 years from now that harks back and sees my old movie, and it might change or affect their life. So for me, it's from a creative perspective, it's monumental. It's just a transcendent feeling. On the other side, I get immense joy out of putting the right people in the room. Having people meet each other to further their dreams, to realize their dreams. See, as a director and a producer, I give people the opportunity to realize their dreams. And a lot of people really don't realize that, and they minimalize the effect of that. I am making people's dreams come true. What other way to make sure that you live a fruitful life and give back to other people than by giving people a chance to really be themselves and create and meet the person that can help push them to that next level? Or you come in and you don't know the area well, or you know you like this, but you don't know what you want to do with this, or you want this experience, and then I can find ways to make that happen. So with both of those entities going at the same time, with being able to say, this dude is a great director, let me put it on the movie screen where it belongs so other people can see it. This woman is great at this, let me give her an opportunity to put a project together that she can be proud of and be able to keep going on and having a career. I look at people like Roger Corman and Lou Wasserman. Those are the people I look up to. You know, I got my favorite directors. And, you know, during the course of the time, different movies hit me different ways. I might like something when I'm one age. It's different for me when I'm younger. But I also look at the moguls behind it. And those people move me. There was no Steven Spielberg without Lou Wasserman. There's no Vincent Price or Jack Nicholson and all these other guys and what they did in their career. James Cameron. It belongs to Roger Corman. So when I look at film, it's monumental for me. It's everything. To put them on screen, to get people to believe in themselves, to be able to have my own stories told, to be able to get other people's stories told. Looking at distribution marketing, looking at different ways to correlate ideas is multicultural, is multi-ethnic, it's everything. So it makes the world, you know, smaller for me, and it makes it better for other people around me. So that's why I do it.
Yeah.
I wish I would have known all this was going on. I would have bought my church tambourine. But they're running through here catching the Holy Ghost. You better go ahead and talk to Anthony.
Yeah, but you know what? It just shows we all have passion, right?
Yeah.
And it means that we're hoping that what we've said here today and what you guys have gotten from this is that it infects you with passion, especially if you guys are all budding filmmakers or want to get into this, because passion is contagious. Every time I work with Anthony, I get more passionate about what I want to do. So you surround yourself with that. So.
Yeah. Well, I have to say myself, I just shot my own short back in, thank you. Yeah. Okay. Y'all are silly. Back in Thanksgiving last year.
November, yeah.
And so I you know, life happened, and now I'm finally picking it back up to edit. And I think as a filmmaker, because I wear this dual hat of film critic and filmmaker, and I think, like Anthony said, it's the creation, the part that where, you know, basically, I mean, it's kind of like a random act, a shooting that happens at a job, and it's like we have this buzzer system, and it's like, well, what if, you know, somebody, you know, actually came in and shot the place? Because sometimes we buzz people in, but we don't know who it is. And that was my initial thought, and now that to see it actually be on film, that to me like really invigorates me. And like everyone said, I think it is the passion, and I'm so grateful for everyone that spoke on the panel tonight, because I think it's obvious that your passion for the craft is palpable. How many people know who Lou Wasserman is? You know what I mean?
Well, that's the other thing. You guys, if you don't know the names like Roger Corman or Lou Wasserman, you should at least get educated. You know, find out who your filmmaker, what I would say, idols are. You know, learn them. You know, whether it be directors, DPs, editors, whatever it may be. You should know who are the experts, or what are conceived experts as in terms of those areas. And if you're not, you're really doing yourself a disservice. So.
Yeah.
No, and also to piggyback on that really quick, if you are a filmmaker in the area, and there's nothing, and I am big on collaborating, but if you are going to collaborate with someone, make sure you see what they do.
Right.
make sure you do the research and you watch what they do, because 9 times out of 10, if their project looks kind of looks kind of janky, looks kind of janky, and their second project looks kind of janky, and their third project looks kind of janky, and you bring them on to your project is probably going to look janky too.
Yeah, surround yourself with good people.
Right.
Yeah.
It'd be sometimes I shake my head looking at Facebook. Like, nah, you don't work with
So
him.
definitely surround yourself with like-minded people, and go out to the festivals and meet other filmmakers. Go up and shake your hand. Go up and introduce yourself. Go up and say, hey, I have an idea. Can we meet for coffee? I think one of the biggest problems in the DMV area is we have that whole, like, you've heard it like 1,000 times. It's the whole crabs in the barrel mentality. Like, we have this fear that whatever Harold does is a threat to me, and whatever I do is a threat to Anthony, and it's not. It's not. It's a group effort. If Harold succeeds, I succeed because I'm here. If I succeed, Anthony succeeds, or Ann succeeds, or Christian succeeds. We all succeed. Once someone on this table succeed, we all succeed, because everyone looks for a new Beyonce. So you have Beyonce, she's here. Well, let's go back. So let's go back to that area, because if he came from there, I know there's somebody else has got to be there. He couldn't have been the only one that was there. And they start to do their research, and they find Christian. Like, oh, look, they have Christian. Someone hears about that. Oh, well, they have Anthony, they have Christian. What else is in DC? What else is in Maryland, DC, and Virginia? You have got to be okay with helping out the next person and not looking at them as competition.
Right, because as all of us go up the rungs of the ladder, the perpetual ladder, we need to be looking behind who else we can bring up with us. Because as a whole, as a community, and this goes back to what I said about all these universities, I know there are alum out there that I haven't been able to find them all, but I know there's alum that we need to be asking, come on back.
Yeah.
You know, give us either guidance or support or whatever to the DMV, filmmaking community. I mean, I'm sure there are. We just, again, I haven't done the research, but.
Well, and that's the whole idea behind this whole DMV Producers Association thing, that we're just so much stronger as a group than we are doing
Individually, right.
doing it all on our own.
Right.
I'll tell you this, I'm going to say it on record. If I ever make it big, I'm not moving to LA. I'm not moving to New York. I want to stay here because there's so much talent here in the DMV. There really is. So.
All right. Well, with that, I think this has been a great conversation. We can definitely continue the conversation. We can continue it over at picturelockshow.com, on our Facebook page, and obviously when this posts to YouTube as well. But even offline, I think it's just having filmmakers get together like this at a time where we can not only talk about the issues, but network as well is a great thing. So let's give them a round of applause. Thank you so much, guys. Washington, D.C. may not be known for its independent film scene, but it's bustling with talented filmmakers, actors, and artists. Perhaps it should be. I have to thank Anthony Greene, Ann Wells, Anthony Anderson, Christian O, and Harold Jackson III for giving their time and getting the conversation started. You can find them at skyrocketproductions.us, dmvproducers.com, youtube.com, Anacostia Series, apafilm.org, and Harold Jackson 3 with the numeral.com, respectively. This show is not possible without my wonderful crew here at Picture Lock. I thank them for their hard work and helping record this labor of love. You can find Picture Lock on Facebook and Twitter. Don't forget to check out picturelockshow.com for movie reviews, news, free screenings in the DMV area, and if you're interested in being a guest on the show or a member of our studio audience. Until next time, I hope you stay locked on film.
You know, if you give people Harold's home address, you can find Harold at his house.
Right.
You just give him the home address.